ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भुरिदा जनाः. So we are meeting after a long time, especially for this gospel class. I think the last conversation which we discussed, where Keshav Sen's doubt is being cleared by Sri Ramakrishna. That was the topic that we discussed. And if you remember, we ended the topic and I just introduced a new topic, which was very interesting. What does Sri Ramakrishna believe in? Of course, this heading was given by M himself. So he is asking a question: what does Sri Ramakrishna believe in household life or complete renunciation? So this has been an eternal doubt, and Sri Ramakrishna somehow, because most of the conversations took place in the presence of householders, it is said that when he spoke to Naren and other disciples, he spoke in a different way. He asked them to come on weekdays if they could, because you will find most of the conversations that took place in Sunday, he would prefer not to discuss the same topics with his young boys and with the householders. So, because he believed that each one has a different role to play in life. I mean, in society, householders are also required. Monks have a different approach to religion and monastic life. Right from time immemorial, the monastic tradition has always been like people like Shankaracharya and all, they considered it to be essential if one has to realize Brahman. But Sri Ramakrishna makes an exception and he says it really doesn't matter what kind of life you lead, as long as you have the same kind of yearning. It's the yearning to attain to the Supreme, to attain to Lord, to the Lord, or your devotion to Lord, and internal vairagya, which really matters. External vairagya may not be necessary for quite a few householders. So I think the devotee was trying to ask this question, and because the topic was discussed, how can one practice jnana while living in a household? Because Sri Ramakrishna was speaking about many things, how one should be detached. So naturally the devotee feels that if he follows this otherworldly approach, by otherworldly approach means when Jesus said you cannot have God and mammon at the same time, he I think he primarily spoke to his inner circle of disciples who were to lead monastic life. So when he said that, directly or indirectly, he said that these two things cannot go together. So the devotee now is asking a question, that how will a householder be able to go on with his duties of the world if he experiences such madness of bhakti or of prema? Because in the previous class we discussed, Sri Ramakrishna was describing prema or intense love, not just bhakti, or jnana. He was trying to explain the similarities between prema, that is not just bhakti but the highest prema, or intense love for God, or intense jnana, the intense love for the supreme consciousness or Brahman, that is jnana. The same Brahman, if you worship a personal God with the same kind of devotion or attachment, it becomes prema. So Sri Ramakrishna hardly made any difference whether you worship the formless or you worship God with form. It's your yearning, it's the sincerity, it is the intense attachment, which he called as prema. Now, to develop that attachment, our scriptures and everybody, all religions say that you can't have both. How can you? So the question now, this devotee seems to be confused. He said, how will a householder be able to go on with his duties of the world if he thinks it is not real? If you can't have God and mammon at the same time, the world, he has to live in the world. How can he experience the madness of bhakti, or that is prema or jnana? So it's a very, very reasonable and logical question. Then Sri Ramakrishna, looking at that particular householder devotee, he is trying to explain a new concept. He says there are two classes of yogis. That is, one is Vyakta yogi and the other is Gupta yogi. Now these are, of course, there in the scriptures, but Sri Ramakrishna's explanation is beautiful. So he says the two kinds of yogis. One is Vyakta, who can be outwardly seen as a yogi. Vyakta means one who manifests the signs of a yogi to the ordinary people. You all know that among the four Antaranga Shishyas which Sri Ramakrishna had, and there was one more. One was a householder, the others were monks, but there was one householder also, whom Sri Ramakrishna considered to be a Antaranga Shishya, though he apparently led the life of a householder. So maybe he could be considered as a Gupta yogi. So one is a Vyakta yogi who is seen by the whole world as a outwardly as a yogi, and the other is a Gupta yogi. Gupta word means one who hides. Hides what? Who hides his yoga from the gaze of other people. He doesn't want to show that he has formally taken the vows of sannyasa. Even Sri Ramakrishna himself, the other day, we were discussing a very important point. According to the Dashanami Sampradaya, monks are not supposed to be cremated. They are supposed to be given a samadhi, that is buried in a particular posture. If you see, most of the Dashanami Swamis, sannyasins, are not cremated. They have to have, most of the monasteries have some land where the monk is given a samadhi, in the sense he is buried there, and they make a small memorial. That is normally what Dashanami Sampradaya, Shankaracharya, if you go to Sringeri and all the other, you will never find them cremating a Swami or a sannyasi. But in Sri Ramakrishna, in the Ramakrishna Mission's case, the first one to be cremated was Swami Yogananda, after Sri Ramakrishna, of course. So there was a quarrel, a sort of debate between the householder devotees led by Ramchandra Datta, who were naturally very powerful. Powerful in the sense they were the ones who thought Sri Ramakrishna was a householder. So there was this confusion even after Sri Ramakrishna trying to clearly explain. The other group believed that since he had sannyas from Totapuri, his body should be buried in a very nice place somewhere, a samadhi of Sri Ramakrishna. But for these young boys, they had not even taken formal vows of sannyasa. So where is the question of mutt? Where is the question? Where will they have the samadhi of Sri Ramakrishna? Ultimately, of course, Sri Ramakrishna was cremated at Kashipur because Ramchandra Datta believed that since Sri Ramakrishna was a householder, in the sense he was married, he should follow, I mean, his body should be cremated. Whereas Shashi Maharaj and there were some Niranjananji and all, they were very upset, but they didn't have a piece of land. Where will they, and if Ramchandra Datta, ultimately who gave his garden house, which was not his original house, it was a garden house which he converted into Yogodhyan, but had he given it token, I mean, even as a token that in the future this will be the mutt, then perhaps they would have thought of doing it. But in the confusion, unfortunately, because the British government was very keen that uh, something had to be done quickly to dispose of. They normally don't preserve the body for that long. So, unwillingly, his body had to be cremated. And Swami Vivekananda believed, when he was asked, when Swami Yoganandaji passed away, there was a discussion going on whether the body should, because he was one of the first monks to pass away in Belur Mutt. After they had a mutt, and now they could easily reserve a small plot for the samadhi of monks, which could have easily. But he said, since we have committed a great sin by cremating the body of Sri Ramakrishna, we should take upon ourselves the prayaschitta. Prayaschitta means some kind of repentance. So, by way of repentance, all the monks who belong to the Ramakrishna order will in future be burnt. So, that was a major decision he took. So, even among the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, whether Sri Ramakrishna was a monk, because he played both roles. If you see Sri Ramakrishna, officially, formally he had taken sannyasa. It's not that he was just but because he did not want his mother to know, he says, my mother will be shocked. So he refused to wear the Gerua cloth. But he was given formal sannyasa by Totapuri. So anyway, this Gupta yogi is one who hides his yoga. So you may say, people of this category, they live as householders, though they in spirit they are monks. So a householder, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is a Gupta yogi. He doesn't let others, provided of course he is devoted, not all householders. So householder renounces mentally but not externally. So here Sri Ramakrishna is making a distinction between a Vyakta yogi and a Gupta yogi. So Ram says, now Ram gives his version. He's trying to explain this idea further by saying, oh, this is like comforting a young boy. One can be a Gyani in the household, but not a Vijnani. Now, because Sri Ramakrishna, just a few paragraphs before, he's trying to explain the difference between a Jnana and a Vijnana. So we'll just see what Sri Ramakrishna answers now. So Ram says this is like comforting a young boy. One can be a Gyani in household, but he cannot be a Vijnani. That is his opinion. Sri Ramakrishna says, no, if he wants finally to be a Vijnani, he can become so. It's not right to renounce the household by forcing yourself. So Sri Ramakrishna leaves this conversation open-ended. He doesn't say this way or that way. Then Ram says, Keshab used to say, Keshab Sen, by Keshab he means, Keshab Sen used to say, why do so many people go to him? Meaning Sri Ramakrishna. He will one day gently sting them. Then they will run away from him. So, that is why Sri Ramakrishna also used to give that example of a cobra. Of course, that was in a different context, that an ideal guru will just gobble up. I mean, ideal like a cobra, he will not allow them. One bite is enough for one. Whereas, if the guru is not ready, then both the guru as well as he'll try to gobble up the frog, and the frog can neither escape nor will he be consumed by that snake. So both will suffer because he can neither finish that frog. So Sri Ramakrishna very humorously used to say that Keshab once mentioned to other disciples, or maybe his own disciples, Brahmo disciples. Then Keshab used to say, why do so many people go to him? He will one day gently sting them and then they will run away from him. Obviously, that was the case. You can find the people who have huge following. Normally, they have a huge following because they teach a comfortable religion, which may not be the right thing, but still, people want a comfortable religion. They want the best of both the worlds. So it's very, very normal to see a huge crowds running after gurus like Brahmo Samaj, for example. Keshav knew the secret why people don't go to Sri Krishna during his, though he was giving such, even people like Keshav used to visit. But how many people stayed with him? Most of them would run away. As Keshav said, he stings them. So that's why they don't stay with him. It requires a lot of spiritual mettle to stay with Sri Ramakrishna, because he never, like Jesus, he used to tell that his message was uncompromising. So many people could not understand him. He could have taught a very comfortable religion and then he would have made everybody happy, but he did not. And as a result, they had to crucify him. And he did not mind, because he said, the spirit will triumph. It's not the world that will triumph. So most of these prophets, most of the great spiritual teachers, they don't make a compromise. So that is why the following will always be less. That's why Keshav knew that, and Ram is mentioning this fact. So many people, why do so many people go? Actually, they will find his religion very uncomfortable. He will gently sting them, and then they will run away from him. Then Sri Ramakrishna also laughed and said, why should I sting gently? He says, I don't have to do that. I tell people, do this and do that too. Live in the, means he's trying to joke. He said, I don't sting them. I just tell them, and then I give them another option also. Do this, means follow religion, do bhakti, and do that also. Live in the family and also call on the Lord. I don't ask them for complete renunciation. Everybody starts to laugh. I mean, he is joking because Keshav felt his message too strong. A great leader like Keshav, if he feels that Sri Ramakrishna's message is so strong that people will not come, then Sri Ramakrishna jokingly says, no, I'm not like that. I tell people, do this and do that too. Live in the family and also call on the Lord. I don't ask them for complete renunciation. I mean, obviously, only for a few people he would say that, and he would see whether some people are around. So when householders were not there, he would call Naren and others and tell them totally different things. In the sense, specifically for them, he would inspire them with so much of renunciation. But he would see that people who are in the household are not around. That's why he called most of them, and he gave a separate message to Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda himself said that he called me to his side many times and said, specifically told me, take care of these boys. Don't allow them to go home. So on one side, he was trying to make religion a little simple, because how many people can afford to renounce everything completely? So that's why now he's saying you can be a Gupta yogi also by living in the household. Also, you can have internal renunciation. Then Sri Ramakrishna is saying that how funny these Brahmo preachers are. He said, Keshav Sen one day said in one of his lectures, "O Lord, grant that we may dive into the river of bhakti." They're wonderful songs, these Brahmo songs. If you see, they're full of renunciation, the spirit of Upanishads and all. You will find them, and they have been expressed in beautiful songs. So one of the songs, Sri Ramakrishna was listening, and in one of his lectures he quoted, "O Lord," he prayed, "grant that we may dive into the river of bhakti and we carry to the ocean of Satchidananda." It's a beautiful poetry, no doubt. And then Sri Ramakrishna, see, even in the midst of this, he is cracking a joke. He says, but all the ladies were behind a screen. Now they, as all of us know, he tried to combine the best elements of different religions. He took some ideas from Islam, he knew Persian, he knew Sanskrit, he knew English, so a little bit of Christianity. So he thought we could keep the flock together by having a little of all. So one of the rules maybe it was borrowed from Islam, because Islam did not allow women to pray. So that the parda system which we say. So all the ladies were behind the screen. They could not attend. It was the most of the meetings, they could attend, but there would be a screen which prevented people from seeing them. So all the ladies were behind the screen. Even Holy Mother, she said, how many times I used to witness through a small hole in the big screen from Nahabat. She used to watch. Sometimes there was nice music going on, Sri Ramakrishna and all the male devotees. So women were not expected to be seen in such gatherings, but Holy Mother was keen. So she would watch from behind the screen from Nahabat and try to enjoy the wonderful divine dance that Sri Ramakrishna and the other Kirtankars would be doing. And Sri Ramakrishna was so sharp, he said, he would tell Hridaya, see, that hole is getting bigger. I mean, she was trying to peep. So he knew that they also want to, and most of the conversations, if you see in the gospel, that was the tradition in those days. You will hardly find any women there. It's not like today where men and women can sit together. It was all a male-dominated society in those days. That was the kind of orthodoxy there. So similarly, Keshav also was saying, praying, of course, in front of a predominantly male audience, that, O Lord, grant that we may dive deep into the river of bhakti and be carried to the ocean of Satchidananda. And then Sri Ramakrishna was a bit confused. He saw that all the ladies were behind a screen, and then he, without any fear, he told Keshav, oh, how could you all dive together? If you did that, what would happen to those ladies? So then he gives a beautiful example. First climb to dry land and then dive. And then again climb up to the dry land. Means you, like tadpole, you can have both. Be in the world for some time, go, just come to the dry land, and then but don't dive all at a time. If you totally dive, then what will happen to those ladies? You have a household, you have to look after them. And then Keshav and all others began to laugh. So this is how, through humor, he used to convey certain ideas without hurting them. You see, that's why he says, I don't sting them. He said, no, don't say that. Don't say that we will dive into the ocean of bhakti. Then what will happen if all of you, all the male population, especially the Brahmo devotees, they were, you will not find the Brahmos allowed, like most of the other religions, like Protestants and other Anglicans. You find marriage is allowed. Monasticism is not insisted upon. Islam also. So also Brahmos never insisted. They were all householders, but at the same time, they were worshipping the formless God. And when you worship the formless God, you talk of Satchidananda, merging yourself in Satchidananda. Then Sri Ramakrishna just pointed out a fallacy here. I mean, how can you leave these ladies who are behind the screen, whom you have married, and then say that we'll dive? So say, I will dive, but now and then I'll come, maybe dive, but at the same time I'll come to first climb to dry land, then dive, then again climb up to the dry land. So in a very jocular way, in a very light way, Sri Ramakrishna conveyed that don't tell anything which is not practical for you. Be honest. So Keshav also knew that and began to laugh. Then Hajra said to me, now this is Sri Ramakrishna explaining how different ideals, people find different ideals attractive to them. So you can't have one quote for all the people. Everybody has his or her own way of life, and to suit that, he has to choose the best path for him. So Hajra once said to him, when he's saying, Hajra said to me, you are very fond of Rajasic people, those who have a lot of money, name, fame, and public respect. Now Sri Ramakrishna is suddenly changing the topic, so that he should not be blamed for, because he was very liberal, that doesn't mean he favored such people. But Hajra, because he was a very worldly minded person, he thought that everybody is like him, running after people who have money. So he says, you are fond of Rajasic people. And Sri Ramakrishna told him, if that is so, why do I love Harish? Noto means Latu. Latu was called by Noto and others. Why am I fond of Narendra? You should remember, in those days, Narendra's financial condition was very bad. He had lost his father, and a lot of money was taken away by his relatives, and even the property, his house was, the relatives were trying to grab that also. So he was in very financially, his family was facing a crisis. That's why he's saying, why am I, if that is so, I just don't I have people like Rajasic people around me. I also have Harish, Latu, and Narendra. He doesn't even have salt to eat with his roasted banana. So that's the typical Bengali way of saying that. So even he doesn't have salt, but still I love him so much. So he just is trying to say that is not the case. Then Sri Ramakrishna comes out of his room. This was in 21st September 1884. You should remember, just 2 years, almost 2 years before his passing away. So the crisis has already started in Naren's life, and many people are now gathering together. The younger disciples are planning. Sri Ramakrishna is trying to train them in a different way, so that, but at the same time, he doesn't want to disturb the faith of householders. So he says, a devotee accompanies him with a washing pot and a hand towel. He is to go to Calcutta to witness the Chaitanya Leela. And this topic is being discussed now. So he was supposed to go after this conversation to see the Chaitanya Leela. Sri Ramakrishna now is talking to M as they approach the Panchavati, because that is where they normally, he used to go with a wash. Somebody used to carry a washing pot. Obviously, it was a metal washing pot. So I don't know what is the reason, but normally somebody would carry it. When he was in a different mood, he would not perhaps touch the washing pot. Anyway, there was a hand towel, somebody, Latu or somebody would go with him. So Sri Ramakrishna is telling M as they approach the Panchavati, Ram does everything in a Rajasic way. What is the need to spend so much for a seat? That means Ram had purchased tickets. Of course, in those days, Girish was, though he was very close, he was close to Sri Ramakrishna, he normally did not charge. But in the beginning, he said he will not be charged, but all of you have to buy the tickets. I mean, there normally would be a big group going with Sri Ramakrishna. So he didn't want to allow everybody to come free. So Ram had, perhaps because they wanted Sri Ramakrishna's company, there was box. Box is the special category where rich devotees would sit. So he says, why did Ram book a ticket there? He could have booked an ordinary seat in that. So Sri Ramakrishna was keen to attend this Chaitanya Leela, but he was upset. He said, why is he so Rajasic? What Thakur means is that there was no need to buy tickets for this box class. It was very expensive, the special class. Then Sri Ramakrishna is going from Dakshineshwar to Calcutta by Mahendra Mukherjee's carriage. It is Sunday, 21st September 1884, the second day of the bright fortnight of the month of Ashwin. That's a Bengali month. So it is around September, 21st September, and it's 5 o'clock. Mahendra Mukherjee, M, and a couple of persons are also in the carriage. Now, the carriage has not gone far when Sri Ramakrishna goes into a state of samadhi while meditating on the Lord. So we all know he used to unexpectedly go into samadhi wherever and whenever he was in a divine mood. So it was very difficult, especially the sevaks who went with him had to be very careful. Even on the when he was crossing the road, it would be dangerous if he goes into samadhi. So he was just traveling in the carriage. Somehow some thought of the Lord. He was meditating on the Lord and he goes into a state of samadhi. The samadhi breaks after a long time. You see, in such a noisy carriage is going in the heart of Calcutta. leave alone thinking or meditating on the Lord. We can't even have normal conversation. So much of noise would be there. But here Sri Ramakrishna is totally absorbed and he was meditating on the Lord, and the samadhi does not break. After a long time it breaks, Thakur says, and suddenly, because in those moments sometimes he used to talk very strange things. And then, because Hajra had told this, that you are very Rajasic, you are meeting with rich people, that was uppermost in his mind. So when he came down from Samadhi, he had to forcibly come down, hold on to some worldly thought. Unlike others, he had to have one or two worldly thoughts or even simple desire like drinking water. Otherwise, he would be lost in that state. He would be merged in that state of Samadhi. So perhaps he had kept that thought, and he says, and Hajra tries to teach me, that rascal. I mean, he was angry that even a person like Hajra is making trying to tell me what I should do, what I should not. Anyway, after a while he says, I shall drink some water. Thakur often says this, M has observed this, when he comes out of Samadhi, to bring his mind down to the outer world. Then Mahendra Mukherjee does not understand that this is just a desire, a simple desire like drinking water, to bring him back to this normal world. So he thought perhaps Thakur is hungry. Shall I bring something to eat? M quickly says, no, he will not eat now. Just because he has asked for water, he will not be in a mood to eat. Then Sri Ramakrishna was still in an ecstatic mood, and like a child he says, no, I shall eat. So Mahendra Mukherjee has a flour mill in Hathi Bagan. He is taking Thakur to see his mill. After resting for a while, Thakur will then go to Star Theatre. So Mahendra Mukherjee has kindly offered a lift, has first taken him to his own mill, a flour mill, which is on the way. And perhaps he will take him there and then take him to the Star Theatre to see that Chaitanya Leela. And Mahendra's house is in Bagh Bazaar, a little to the north of the Madan Mohan temple. His father is not acquainted with the Paramahansa Deva, so Mahendra hasn't taken Thakur to his house. Mahendra was very, you all know, in his house, most of the people were not devoted to Thakur. Even his wife was so difficult. Once Sri Ramakrishna himself said, please bring her. And then maybe she changed a little bit. She was highly eccentric and caused a lot of problem. In fact, the whole family, the relations between brothers, and it was a joint family, and the situation was so bad that Thakur very often, in fact, the first meeting was it took place in Dakshineshwar when he was contemplating to commit suicide. That was the kind of trouble he had in his household. I mean, other brothers. Living was not so easy there. So he is deliberately not taking Sri Ramakrishna to his house because his own father, who lived there, is not acquainted with the Paramahansa, and he may not treat him with proper respect. So Priyanath, his second brother, is a devotee. Maybe a few of their household were devotees. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said, the only exception, except for Balram Bose and another one or two families, he said how rare it is for all the members of the family to be devoted, equally devoted. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says, he visited Balram's house so many times, which is now Balram Mandir, because once you remember a few Sundays ago we discussed this. Sri Ramakrishna was saying, an ideal family is very rare. By ideal family he meant all the members. In those days there were joint families, so there were many people. How many such households you will find where everybody is devoted and everybody is spiritual? So he said only one or two, handful he said. One of them is Balram and maybe one or two others. So now a cotton carpet was spread over a wooden cot in Mahendra's mill. Thakur is sitting there and talking on spiritual matters. For Thakur, wherever he goes, he doesn't bother. His thought was always on God, and his conversation was always centered around God. So Sri Ramakrishna now is, even in that mill, maybe some mill employees would have come. His idea was just to show his mill to Thakur so that Sri Ramakrishna visits that mill. But even there, the little time he got, he's speaking on spiritual things. So he's speaking to M as well as Mahendra was the owner of the mill. Hearing the narration of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Hajra, now this Hajra is still in his mind, because Hajra had said, he had recollected that Hajra had said, you are meeting only rich people. So Hajra used to create lot of confusion. And normally used to sit near the door. So people coming, they would first have to encounter Hajra. Like he was like a receptionist there. And Sri Ramakrishna knew that this fellow is creating lot of problems, misguiding people. And with a big bead and mala in his hand, people would believe, many of them would believe. But that was the sport of the Lord. I mean, it was Divine Mother's will that such people, maybe that way some people would be filtered out. Many would be simply told by Hajra that, no, you don't have to go there, you will not get anything. I mean, maybe the people deserved not to meet Sri Ramakrishna. That is also Mother's will. There is a very interesting incident which we discussed earlier. Sri Ramakrishna so simply told this. See, it is very important to understand that everybody whom God has created has a role. So we cannot have the strong likes and dislikes towards certain people. We may not like, but we don't know what God's plan is. So a very interesting incident happened. Once he was so angry with Hajra, Thakur, because many people he was just turning them away. So once he said, he went and told Hajra, see, you are creating such a nuisance that I have prayed to the Divine Mother to remove you from here. Now you can imagine what was the type of behavior he must have had that even Sri Ramakrishna got angry. So he just said, like a child, he went and told him, I have prayed to the mother that you are creating a lot of trouble here, and many of the devotees cannot come to me. So, and Hajra simply smiled, and after a few weeks or maybe few months, he went and jokingly told Sri Ramakrishna, see, mother did not listen to your prayer, I am still here, nothing has happened. Then Sri Ramakrishna, anybody else would have been angry, but Sri Ramakrishna smilingly said, yes, what can I do? That is mother's wish. So if she wishes, she will keep you. I mean, there was absolutely no ego. So whenever he criticizes Hajra, it is because of some ideal. He has no personal grudge against him. In fact, because of Naren, he even blessed Hajra when he was about to die. He appeared before him. So you see, Sri Ramakrishna and the God has a different way of looking at things. We have a different way of analyzing or judging people. As Jesus said, judge not that ye be not judged. If you don't want God to judge you and look at your merits and demerits and then pass any judgment, then you should not judge others. It's a very important teaching. In every religion we have this. Even Holy Mother said, don't see the faults of others. So, but still, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, hearing the narration of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Hajra said, means in front of everybody, how he was confusing. It is all the sport of Shakti, Divine Mother. There is no Vibhu in it. So, there is no Vibhu in it. Vibhu means all-pervading consciousness. He had some very strong views. He said, you talk of infinite consciousness. No, it is just a sport of Shakti. So Shakta people may even, they give so much of importance to Prakriti or Shakti that they perhaps think, if they have misunderstood the Shakta philosophy, that Shiva or pure consciousness is irrelevant, because we are happy with this Maya, we are happy with this Prakriti, and Mother will help us. So whatever we want, we can get. So similarly, Hajra, who had a lot of desires in the world, he wanted to earn money, he wanted name and fame. So he says, where is Vibhu? I mean, he took certain ideas, and, when you take it out of context, you can prove anything. So he says, it is all the sport of Shakti, divine power. There is no Vibhu in it, when there is no need for consciousness. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, he was upset. He says, can there be Shakti without Vibhu? Vibhu means Shiva. He is trying to disprove the teachings of this place. I mean, this place means pointing to himself. He never said my teachings. This place means whatever comes from my mouth, he is trying to disprove. I speak of certain things, he goes on telling people the opposite. So then he is explaining why both Brahman and Shakti are necessary. Why Shiva and Shakti, even in the Tantras or even in the Shakta worshippers, they also have to have the idea of. So the heading now, the conversation is going on. Though Sri Ramakrishna is referring to the wrong ideas that Hajra gave. He says, Hajra says that everything is Shakti's play. Where is the Vibhu there? I mean, where is the need for Brahman? Where is the need for Shiva? Where is the need for pure consciousness? So, the heading which M has given is Brahman pervades all as Vibhu. A pure devotee doesn't want the 6 supernatural powers, because the 6 supernatural powers come within the realm of Shakti, the divine power. So those who worship Mother as Shakti, naturally they are lured by these powers. And though no doubt they don't have that ego that these powers are ours, they know Mother will give us these powers, but still, what happens if you don't accept Brahman who pervades all as Vibhu? Then you fall, the avidya maya of Shakti can tempt you with these 6 super. That's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. He's warning the devotees that when you accept Shakti, you have to accept Shiva, you have to accept Vibhu, the pure consciousness. Then only you will be on the right path. So he says, I know that Brahman and Shakti are not separate from each other. They are like water and its wetness, fire and its power to burn. God is present in the form of Vibhu, though there is greater manifestation of his Shakti in some, less in others. Besides, he is pointing out another wrong idea of Hajra. He says, besides, Hajra says, when one attains Bhagwan, that is Vibhu, or maybe Brahman, one acquires the 6 supernatural powers like him. There will be 6 powers in one's grasp, which may or may not be used. So he is trying to twist the scriptures and confuse people, saying that you will get all the powers, you may use or may not use. So M then jokes. They know that Sri Ramakrishna does not take Hajra's words seriously. So M says, okay, that means one must have the 6 powers in one's grasp. Then all start laughing. That was not what Sri Ramakrishna intended. Sri Ramakrishna also laughs and says, yes. And Hajra says, one must possess them. What a low intellect. He who has never enjoyed powers is eager to possess them. The pure devotee never prays for these powers. Now, that is how he concludes this conversation. Now, betel leaves have not yet been served in the mill. Thakur says, please fetch some betel leaves. In those days, Sri Ramakrishna also used to believe that betel leaves, it's like a mouth freshener. So now and then these betel leaves are used not only for digestion, but they are also used after food, so that if you eat something, you end the meal with some betel leaves. In different forms they are taken, and these betel leaves are supposed to not only help you to digest the food, but also it acts as a mouth freshener. So now Sri Ramakrishna has to go to ease himself. Mahendra gets a pot of water and holds it in his hand. He will accompany Thakur out in the open space. That's how they used. They didn't. Very rarely you will find bathrooms in those days, washrooms and toilets. So anyway, seeing money standing in front of him, Thakur says to Mahendra, "You don't have to carry it. Give it to him." Money is M. Actually, M used to disguise his name by using other names that sometimes he used to call himself Money, sometimes a devotee, sometimes M, sometimes so many names just to hide himself so that he does not become prominent in the whole conversation. So he very carefully, if you see the whole gospel, he's tried to hide himself. Normally, when we praise somebody, the I becomes so powerful. We want, our relationship with Thakur. I was a special. Most of the reminiscences are like that. And especially when Mahapurush Maharaj's reminiscences were compiled, the editor had a very tough job, especially the monk who edited it. He said sometimes the reminiscences are written just to show to express, people want to show how close they were to Sri Ramakrishna, rather than show his glory and his greatness. It's so difficult to hide oneself. Normally the ego tries to establish itself. So here in the whole gospel you will find he's changing his name so that people don't, because otherwise they'll feel that everywhere M. So sometimes he'll say money, so people just their attention gets diverted. So whoever it may be, seeing money standing in front of him, Thakur says to Mahendra, "You don't have to carry it. Give it to him." Money takes the washing pot and accompanies Thakur to the open space inside the mill. After the wash, Thakur is offered a smoke from the hookah. Thakur says to him, "Is it already Sandhya, twilight hour? If so, I shall not smoke from the hookah." So he had his own discipline, own time when he would do. But since he was indoors, he did not know whether it was twilight. In fact, when he first met, during the first few meetings, M was also surprised. He said, "Everybody knows it is evening," and he is asking whether it is twilight or what has happened, because he was in a totally different state of mind. He would not know when day passes into night and night passes. For him, 24 hours it was God's consciousness or God's presence that he felt. So these things were very trivial. Like Hanuman used to say that I don't know what that tithi is. I just am focused on Rama, and he was so devoted to Rama that he very often forgot the tithi. Tithi means which day it was, whether it was a weekday or weekend. So also here, Sri Ramakrishna used to simply ask certain questions which would perhaps appear rather strange to normal householders. He is asking whether it has become twilight. If it is twilight, I shall not smoke, because he never perhaps smoked from the hookah. When Sandhya is approaching, see, he's giving the reason why it should be done. When Sandhya is approaching, one should remember Hari and forget everything else. So even these minute details we will find in the gospel. So if it is Sandhya means twilight hours, when day changes into night. Perhaps the play was in the evening, late night, or maybe after evening. So he says, saying this, Thakur sees whether he can count the hair on his hand. That was one way. Obviously, there would not be clocks everywhere. So one of the ways Thakur had discovered was to just see if he can see his hair clearly. There was not much light in those days. Only lamps would be there. So if it was dark, he found that if it is sunset, after sunset, he would not see the hair on his hand. If he cannot, then it is dusk. That is one way of finding whether it is whether the twilight hour has passed or not. So now he goes to watch the Chaitanya Leela in the theater, Sri Ramakrishna in Samadhi. Now he goes into M. Baburam, a devotee of the lineage of Nityananda, Mahendra Mukherjee, and Girish. These were the people who were present. So Thakur's cab arrives in front of course it was hired by Mahendra Mukherjee, who had taken him first, and the same cab takes him to Star Theatre on Beedon Street at about 8:30 p.m. So it's quite late in the night. He is accompanied by M. Baburam, Mahendra Mukherjee, and one or two other devotees. They are purchasing the tickets. Girish Ghosh, the manager of the theatre, comes to Thakur's carriage with some theatre employees. They welcome him and cordially take him upstairs. Girish knows the Paramahamsa Deva by name. It's just a recent acquaintance. So he is extremely happy that Thakur has come to witness the performance of Chaitanya Leela. Thakur is given a seat in the southwestern box. Box is a very prestigious seat from where you have not only a good view, but you have to pay more for that ticket. Anyway, Girish Ghosh has offered Sri Ramakrishna that seat. Baburam and one or two devotees are seated behind them. The theatre hall is well lit. The seats on the ground floor are filled. Some boxes are also occupied. Boxes, because people had to pay more money, sometimes they were empty. Each box has an attendant who fans the spectators from behind. So this is another facility these boxes give, because Calcutta can be very warm, and this extra for the extra money that you pay for the ticket, boxes had an attendant. Every box had an attendant who would fan the people sitting there with a fan. Obviously it was a hand fan, manual fan. So Girish had appointed an attendant to fan Thakur. So Sri Ramakrishna is as happy as a child to see the theatre hall. So he enjoyed this. He was very excited at the prospect of seeing this Chaitanya Leela. And all Girish's play were well attended, and he had some really good actors who could do justice to the play. Then Sri Ramakrishna says to M, laughing, it's so nice, it's good we came. I get inspired when there are so many people around. I can clearly see that he has become all. You see, when we see a crowd, this is the state of Vijnana which he referred. In the beginning, you hated to see faces of people. He used to go into solitude. That is when he was aspiring for Jnana. But after that, the same Lord you see in everybody. That time people don't become a nuisance. So that is how Sri Ramakrishna explained. Then when you go up the stairs, you find that the material with which the staircase is made, you are excited to go up and try to find what is the material made, what is the material of which this terrace is made. But he says once you ascend the steps, when you reach the terrace, you find it's the same material used here. So that's why when you come down, now you are no longer surprised, because you have reached the top and now you come down with a different idea. While you are going, it was a suspense. When you come down, you as a Vijnani, you see the same Lord, and see the same Lord has become everyone. So he is the transcendent Lord. At the same time, he is the immanent God. But that state of Vijnana comes only when you have Jnana. So he is very happy, and then he says, even this casual sentence, statement of Sri Ramakrishna has a deep meaning. He says, seeing so many people, I get inspired. He would not have said this during his sadhana period. In fact, he was keen to run away from people, go into under the tree of Panchavati, which was so isolated and used to like solitude. But now he says, I get inspired when there are so many people around. This is not socializing as we would expect. Then we can misconstrue this to say that Sri Ramakrishna also liked crowd. When we want to socialize, because we are not in that Vijnana state. he explains, I get inspired when I see so many people because he's not seeing them as jivas. He's seeing them as reflections. I clearly see that he has become all. So when that state comes, when that state of vijnana comes, it is okay if you mix with the crowd. Otherwise, it can lead to, for spiritual progress, solitude is offer. That's why Sri Ramakrishna himself says, when he addresses the devotees, the aspirants, he says you have to go into solitude now and then. If he had wished everybody to see and realize that the same God is everywhere, then he would have told them. He would not have told them to go to Nirjan Vas, to go to an isolated place. First you have jnana and then use that jnana and that vijnana, use the vijnana to see the transcendent Lord that you have realized as immanent in all beings. So now he comes to a casual conversation. Then M agrees with him. Yes, we are also happy. Then Sri Ramakrishna asks, suddenly is asking a very secular question. What will they charge us? He's so concerned. So M says, they will not charge us anything. They are glad that you come. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, that is all mother's greatness. So the curtain rises. All the spectators turn their eyes towards the stage. The first scene shows a meeting of sin and the six enemies. Six enemies. What is the sin? Sin means Papa Purusha. Now, this has been taken, this idea of sin. Recently, there was an interfaith meeting where they said Hinduism and Buddhism doesn't have this idea of sin. Though it was not there, later on this idea of Papa and Punya in the Puranic age, it was introduced, and Hinduism also started believing, because most of the Semitic religions which came had their influence. So here Gauranga, who obviously came much later, this idea, the whole idea of sin is there. So sin is personified as a character, and he's coming and asking talking with six other people who are representatives of six passions: lust, anger, greed, attachment, pride, and envy. These are the six enemies of devotion. So Chaitanya used to explain that. And normally when these passions are there, sin is also present there. So sin is confronted with the six enemies. And then it is followed by a dialogue between discrimination, viveka, vairagya, and bhakti. Because Gauranga believed that without discrimination and dispassion, one cannot have true prema bhakti. So even bhakti is shown as a character, and bhakti says Gauranga has taken birth in Nadia. That is why the learned and the rishis and munis are coming in disguise. This is a beautiful song, in disguise to see him. Now there is a beautiful song. Obviously, Girish, there were a lot of actors who were themselves great singers. Sometimes there would be background music. There were background musicians. A lot of them later on became the foremost musicians of India. Though they played, they had started their career as young people in Girishas. One of them is the famous, he was learning from the same guru as Swami Vivekananda, that is Wazir Khan was, who taught Swami Vivekananda, also taught Alauddin Khan, who later on became one of the most famous. He has so many classical musicians as his disciples. So he, at a very young age, who ran away from home to learn music, he was employed because that's how he learned so many instruments. He could play sarangi, he could play violin, he could play so many instruments. He was a very talented boy. And he used to play, when the songs were sung, behind the screen there would be somebody who would give the background music. Very often the singing also took place from behind the screen, and if the actors could sing, they would sing. So it was more of a musical drama which Girish Ghosh wrote. And the song is, "Blessed is the earth that Lord Gauranga has appeared in Nadia. Behold, the demigods are coming by a flying chariot to have a glimpse of Lord Hari." So most of these wonderful dialogues and the dramas were so powerful that Sri Ramakrishna told him, "Don't stop this. You continue. You are inspiring so many people." Though he had other bad habits, but this was one good talent which Sri Ramakrishna encouraged him. He wanted to give it up when he got Vairagya and he just wanted to follow spirituality. But Sri Ramakrishna said, "No, no, no, don't stop this." Because a lot of criticism was there that theatre was not looked upon as a noble profession. Mostly the actors came from very, very people from high society would not act. Acting was supposed to be done by people who came from the lower strata of society. So he had taken a big risk and he had established the Bengali theatre in the whole of, and raised it to the level. And Sri Ramakrishna's visit to the theatre not only raised the Girish Ghosh, the director, and the other people, he himself acted in many of his dramas, but the other actors also felt that they were, though they had taken birth in underprivileged and various other families, but still they felt proud that they were actors. So he raised the level. Sri Ramakrishna's inspiration or Sri Ramakrishna's presence, they say, raised the level of the idea of theatre. Theatre which was taken to be mere entertainment, because of the wonderful dramas, spiritual dramas which Girish Ghosh wrote. He has written so many innumerable dramas which have become very popular and also interspersed with wonderful music and songs. So we will conclude today and we'll continue in the next Sunday. Hopefully next Sunday, most probably no, we will not have a class next Sunday. Oh, next Sunday we will have. Yeah, no, even next Sunday we will be in Dublin. We'll be in Dublin. So perhaps we will not have a gospel class. The Sunday after that, all of you know, we are having a memorial meeting for revered Swami Tripurananji Maharaj, because that and lot of Swamis who are coming on the 1st, they will be there, and two more Swamis from Germany, from France and Geneva are also joining us. So all are invited for this memorial meeting and a retreat in the morning as well. So the retreat, we will be announcing it soon. It will begin at say 9:30 or 10, and then it will end with the memorial meeting in the evening. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.